And I have here a 4-way card. We'll look at a picture of it. This was posted at Split Coast Stampers. I like 3D things, and my grandchildren like 3D things. I have lots of grandchildren and lots of birthdays, and I just need to have something simple and but that has a wow factor. So what this is just a A2 size card multiplied 4 times. So you have the front and the back and a side and a side. They're all glued together, and you have a shape cut out of the center with the same shape a little bit smaller dangling from a piece of twine. Now that shape in the middle could be flat, or it could again be multiplied 4 times and put together the same as a card. So the front side of the card is folded, all pieces are folded in half in the center, and half of the front is glued to half of the side. Then the next page, half is glued to half of the back. Then half of the left side is glued to the back, and half of the left side is glued to the front. But before you do that final segment of gluing the side to the front, you put your twine in, about 7 inches length of twine, glued right on the center of the fold all the way down, and let it dry so that you have a nice piece of twine there. And you do the same with the inside shape. Leave that final edge open so that you can thread the twine through, and then glue the inside shape together and glue the last edge of your side to your front. And then you have this card that will fold up flat to put in an envelope, but when it opens up, then you can spread out the legs in a diamond shape like you see here and decorate it. You can decorate with little tiny cutouts with rhinestones, stamps. You can put different greetings on each side of the card as you like, different sentiments. So I'll show you how I did this. Close the picture here, and you see here that I just had the cards, and instead of using a heart, I decided to use a flower. You could use a star. It depends on your event. If it's graduation, maybe you want to use a star. I decided to use a flower. To make a flower, I'm just going to make a new page here. To make a flower, I went into Basic Shapes and grabbed an 8-pointed star. There's an 8-point star here. Double click. And you can make it any size because we'll resize. Haven't done this for a while, so I thought I'd show it to you again. Click on Shadow Layer, the 4th icon from the right on the bottom. We don't want it to be a minus, but just a plus. I'm going to increase the shadow width until this center section looks like a flower. Just a different way to make a flower out of a star. So you can keep increasing the size until you like the shape of the flower that appears. Well, that looks pretty good. It's about a 1/2 inch shadow there. Once I like that, I'll accept it and get rid of the star because I don't need it anymore. Now I can resize this to about 3 inches wide with the gold lock icon on, and press enter, and it resizes it to 3 inches. So I'll move it over here because I'm going to make my card on the main page. I could keep it over here. I'm going to do another shadow, but this time I'm going to do a negative number because I want an inset shadow. And let's make it a 0.15. Let's see what happens. Well, I think maybe I'll probably need a 0.2 inch. what's going to happen, I don't like the shadow because it doesn't look as much like a flower. I could do a, instead, I'm going to take this, hold Control Shift, and click, and then just resize it by hand so that one fits right inside the other. I'll just stack them, select both and type S. We'll go to the contrast here. So you can see this one is going to be the actual flower that I'm going to hang on the twine, and this is going to be the cutout in the card. So we have the cutout for the card and then the shape we're going to hang. I'll move them aside. I could, let me make the score lines now. Well, I'll do that later. Now I want to get a square, so I'm going to type in SQ, double click, or I could go to where I've saved my A2 size cards. An A2 card front, I have to click on the green, the gold lock to make it green, and for the width of the card I want it 4.25 inches. Tab over to the height and make it 5.5 and press enter. So this represents my card. I'll put it on the center, it doesn't matter where you put it. And I'm going to add a layer for the score line. I think I should probably put this on its own layer too. To do that, select it and click on the smaller of the two green plus icons in the lower right corner, and that'll send the card to its own layer. And so we have this ready to go. I'm going to add a new layer, and on this layer I'm just going to draw a line with maybe snapping it at 1/4 inch. Open up my editing tools, left click on the pen, and I'm going to left click on a line and right click on a line where I want it to end. And since snapping is on, it's straight, I'm going to hold a shift and click on the card and type S so it stacks that score line right in the center. So I'm going to make this a score line, a dashed line, by clicking on Create New Style, and I like a little space between my lines. So now we have the basic card. I'm going to turn off my snapping and try to line it up in the center sort of so I can see it. And I'm going to hide the score line because I really don't want to have that score line in my way at the moment. Now I could stack both of these, but it puts the flower right in the center. What I really want, I'm going to send it up a little bit. I want it in the center vertically, but I want it horizontally offset a little bit. So this, I'll just move up, and you can move it up as high as you want. I'm probably going to leave about a 1/2 inch from the top, maybe even a little lower, to give room for the twine to pass through and be glued between here and here. So once I have it the way I want, then I can click on Boolean join and B-A. Let's undo that. Try that again. Boolean join, and I want B-A difference, and apply. So now I have the whole, and I have my score line, and all I need to do is add the flower to get an idea where it's going to be. Although it's going to cut separately, I'll put it on its own layer here. And I do want to have a score line down the middle of it if I'm going to have multiples. So I will draw a score line here, add a new layer for the score line. I'll put the snapping on 1 inch just to make it easier, because that way you can left click and right click would help to not have snapping if it's not perfectly on the 1-inch line. So you can, with a node editing tool, you can just drag it to where you want it. Should have made the snapping a little smaller. You can right click and make sure it's aligned so it's straight. Okay, so I'm going to make that a dash line. And now I have my pieces, and I'm going to put it in the center mostly because I'm going to multiply this out 4 times, because I need 4 of everything. Rather than duplicating things one at a time, I'm just going to put the whole card here, and I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate, and Duplicate. And what I want is 2 rows and 2 columns. And I have them separated by 2/10 of an inch. Doesn't matter much. If you want to save paper, you can put them closer. But now I have my, maybe I want to make these red, burgundy, the empty layers, and you can, if you want, label these score lines and cut lines. And if you want to see the contrast, you can see the project here. Then all you need to do is cut these out. You can cut them all at once unless you want to use a scoring tool instead of dash lines for cutting. Now you can cut these out and assemble them. You could add embellishments. You could add text that you would like to draw with a pen.